Rick and Morty has been falling off, bro. To be fair, it picked itself up a bit in the last season, I think. The fear hole was a fantastic hole, don't get me wrong. But no matter what you think of the show, no matter what kind of a fan you are, there is one singular episode that unites us all. Everyone can stand against this episode and say, this is too far. Ladies and gentlemen, have you seen the sperm episode?
What?
Rickdependence Spray is the 4th episode of the 5th season of Rick and Morty. The plot is as follows. After Morty goes to the horse clinic where Beth works to see a movie with Beth, he finds one of the breathing mounts and he uses it on himself. Basically, it's a machine that helps a horse to simulate breeding, and he used it on himself. After about a week of this, Rick decides to use the stuff for one of his experiments because, naturally, he thinks it's horse semen. And when he flips the switch, giant sperm creatures emerge and start taking over the world. Because that's not horse sperm, no, that came from Morty. And that's just the beginning of this nightmare train wreck. We'll get into how it ends later in the video because it gets worse. Immediately after airing, this episode sparked an enormous controversy, the likes of which Rick and Morty had never seen and haven't seen since. Well, except for that one time. To a lot of people, this episode simply went too far. Rick and Morty was always weird, but this one was just straight up, disturbing. If you haven't seen this episode, thank God, but also, buckle up, chuckle nuts, because this one is gonna get gross. So like I said before, Morty goes to the hospital, gets himself jacked off, and he accidentally creates these giant flying sperm that eat people. But the way it actually happens is fairly odd.
What? Mess with you how? Like trying to get me to say something? Morty, I have no idea what you're talking about. For real? Yes. Okay, good. Then it's your fault.
Morty is acting really weird to Rick because he doesn't want him to know that it's his stuff, not from a horse. But this goes over Rick's head for the entire episode. This is Rick Sanchez. He'd be able to put 2 and 2 together pretty easily. In any other episode, Rick is a genius. But in this one, complete square behavior. It's just barely in range for him to figure this out, but for the sake of a stupid, forced, liar-revealed story, he doesn't figure it out. So Morty's starts attacking everybody. Really think about that for a second. This is Morty's baby gravy. Oh, this is Morty's sperm. And it's touching everything and everyone, including the people in his own family, dude. This is absolutely vile. I'm not an idiot. Rick and Morty is obviously weird. We've all seen Lawnmower Dog. And we weren't talking about this back then, because it's shock comedy, right? But this is 2021, the year this episode came out. This stuff is just not okay anymore for a mainstream show like this. Anyway, the episode then transitions into a presidential special, which I gotta say, was a very disappointing and bland route for it to take. You can have your own opinions, but these are never my favorite episodes because the president is just kind of a bummer to see interacting with everyone around him. He's a boring character, he's an asshole. In my opinion, he can suck a big fat donut. Rick turns to Morty and asks him to keep the space sperm a secret. Oh, why does Rick think these things have come from space? Or why did he come up with that excuse? No idea. It's more of a leap in logic than figuring Morty has something to do with it. Rick knows Morty and his typical behavior. There's no way he wouldn't be able to suspect something was up with him. Rick could just analyze one of these creatures if he wanted to. They're literally pure DNA. And they try to do that later in the episode, but Rick isn't the one to think of it. Because, I don't know, it would be too easy or something? Also, why does Rick care about keeping their origins a secret if he's not really responsible? He didn't test it, so he technically is, but he didn't know where it came from exactly. The point is, this is all super contrived, and none of it feels within Rick's character. They then introduce a character that's a parody of those Emmerich-type scientists. The ones who are nerds, but cool nerds, you know? Adam Sandler basically took this character archetype.
Somebody's more important.
And just inserted himself, but made the situation not sci-fi. You're a sperm scientist, and suddenly you're on the arm of a girl who is way out of your league. Godzilla, Independence Day, Stargate, we've seen them all 1,000 times before. They make a sort of funny pussy joke and then the scene is over. Oh wait, before it ends, they also make a bunch of jokes. Like, not out of the ballpark of possibility for an episode like this, but the comedy in general is giving low-hanging fruit, which is another dick and balls joke that they could have made. The scientist announces that he's going to analyze one of the creature's DNA, and Morty shoots it before he can. Okay, seriously, how in the ever-loving hell is no one able to suspect Morty had something to do with this? At least we got a half-decent joke out of the interaction.
Oh, why? It had a gun!
This episode is pretty goddamn terrible, but this joke wasn't bad. Well, pity claps. Rick and Morty decide to just nuke the things, but before they can, the sperm build trebuchets and knock them out of the sky. I guess the point is they're evolving, but they never come out and outright confirm that. So it's kind of a random element that never gets explained. They're suddenly building trebuchets. Okay. This episode also takes a lot of shots at misogynists, which, hey, I am always here for, but it's really shoehorned into this one. I'm not trying to spread any woke agenda here, but when you're making these points, you have to have it in a very nuanced way, or else people are going to be able to tell you're just trying to push a message that's not baked into the episode in an organic fashion. Both the president and this random marine interrupted the natural flow of dialogue with tangents about how boys roll, girls drool, and it's just weird. It's completely unwarranted, and I don't know why it's here. Maybe the network thought that it would make an episode completely about sperm, less gender specific, by having a very female empowering message that's very in your face? I don't know. I see what they were trying to do, but I think the execution just isn't good enough for it. The same Marine dies shortly thereafter, but before he does, he gives the sperm creatures a name. Krispy Kremes. I think I might actually throw up. What is wrong with you guys? You could have kept that one to yourselves. Morty starts talking to his own sperm, which is a sort of natural turn for the episode to take. It makes sense for the story to go somewhere like this, is my point. It doesn't attack him once it realizes it's him, but why didn't the other sperm react this way? No idea. And the episode truly does not give a shit about explaining that to you. There's more plot holes in this one than your average Marvel movie. So Rick doesn't kill the sperm because Morty wants it to live, and he wants him to go free. Again, sort of out of Rick's character. I guess this is one of the later seasons and Rick's trying to be more nicer to Morty. It doesn't feel like Rick would actually do this. But we don't have time to focus on this problem because wake up, babe. It's time to take down the patriarchy yet again. I'm just being hyperbolic.
Rick's gone and so are all our nukes. Now what? None of you have an idea?
I do. That's right, me, the girl.
It just feels totally random. Oh my god, is this the B story? Is this, are they trying to give us an actual B story? They're trying to pass off Beth putting her feet on the table and Jerry getting water as an actual B story we should be invested in. Did everyone just not give a shit this week? Was that the week that they announced Minecraft, the sex update, and everyone just had better shit to do? Again, using hyperbole here, but it's clear that the writers were just trying to stretch this meandering story out into a 22-minute cog in the content machine. It just does not work. It looks like they got their groove back with this next bit though. The super cool samurai character that Rick and Morty were admiring dies in a genuinely funny way. This is one of the only parts of the episode that made me actually laugh on rewatch. He stabs himself, showed that he's wearing a thong, and then tries to suck himself off. Then he dies. It is actually an incredibly well-timed joke in an ocean of poor pacing. It's confusing and I love it. So Rick and Morty are captured by a sperm queen. I'm actually gonna throw up. Stand back. And it's finally revealed that Morty is the one who created these monsters with his jizz. Fantastic. They plan to use the machine on him again to create an army of sperm creatures. Remember, this is a 14-year-old boy. How was this allowed on television ever? Just imagine this episode gender swapped. Oh man, this becomes one of the most horrifying things you could ever conjure out of a writer's room. And that is saying something. Look, I'm all for sex jokes, but honestly, this is just disgusting. Sentient sperm sounds like something Rick and Morty could pull off with the right amount of nuance. Nuance seems like a weird word to use in this situation. But once you start thinking about this cosmic cum eating everyone, it starts to hit you that this episode has just pushed it too far. Wait, I also gotta show you how the storyboarders drew Morty at a low angle. I don't know what it is, something about this is just really funny to me. Like, look at him. That's hilarious. The machine then proceeds to do its job, and just listen to this audio without the video.
Oh no! Oh!
Yes, the end is near! Any last words?
No!
You can actually see more sperm coming out of this whole thing, and it's just, ugh. I realize a lot of my quote-unquote criticism at this point is just how gross it is, which isn't very constructive, and I want to be constructive. But this episode does have a few decent jokes in it, but it's really its only saving face. It's a shame it was wasted on a story like this. We actually have to listen to Morty having his underage getting and this is TV 14? Like, I want to speak to the manager. I'm going full Karen nuclear bomb. Morty's sperm friend Sticky, yes, he named it Sticky, ends up saving the day. Woohoo! Episode over, right? Summer, along with the rest of the B-story tag-alongs, has taken one of her own eggs and has enlarged it to attract the sperm. It's out in the open, basically defenseless. So if one of Morty's loads reaches the egg, ugh, dude, my stomach just dropped. They really did it. Dan Harmon, you absolute fiend. This isn't just an episode about sperm, it's also about incest. You've got to be out of your gourd if you think I'm letting this slide. This is essentially what would happen if a porn star was tasked with writing a Roland Emmerich film all by themselves, and they had to turn in the first draft. Sperm come to life, eat people, 14-year-old boy, incest baby. Like, that even sounds worse than what I just described. Rick and Morty are then kidnapped by horse people? Don't worry about it, it's a few throwaway lines sprinkled in throughout the episode. Trust me, it makes somewhat amount of sense for them to be here. Turns out, Rick fucked a horse. Let that sink in. I'm really trying to resist making a joke about a certain streamer. I'm really trying, guys. The left is trying to make Rick Sanchez a furry, and of course this horse is pregnant, so let's tick off the boxes. This episode has done sin. This episode has done incest. And now this episode has done bestiality. Were they just gunning for a demonetization bingo here? It's really bothering me, the nature of this whole thing. You know, when you're just in that kind of a mood and everything is clouding your judgment? I really think this episode features writers who are just really horned up for 22 minutes. And not one person thought to put their foot down and say, you know what, maybe let's not let Rick fuck a horse. So back to the quote-unquote B story, they're spraying semen all over the place with a hose. Wait a minute. I think I just mixed up my video script with a Pornhub transcript. That's really how the story progresses. Well, that doesn't even make sense. How is spraying this stuff everywhere supposed to ward off something of the exact same nature? It's rotting my brain. Anyway, Summer and Beth are like pissed off because no one is listening to them, so they hop onto one of the sperm creatures, Morty's sperm, as I feel the need to yet again bring this to your attention. Morty's sister and Morty's mother are riding Morty's sperm. I'm in an apartment building right now recording this. I really hope no one just heard me say that. The horse teams up with the humans to stop the giant sperm from reaching the giant egg and creating an incest baby. But for a 5th season episode, it's completely out of place. I wouldn't be surprised if this was a rejected season 1 script that they finally got around to making. Also, leave it to this episode to have some actually good animation, like what? Some of this fight choreography feels like it's a step above what we usually see from Rick and Morty. So I guess it's not a total loss. All of this epic fighting was for nothing though, because Sticky impregnates the egg. Summer tries to blow it up anyway, but the president stops her. Fun fact, this episode aired about 1 year before Roe v. Wade was overturned. Not that that has any bearing on the story or anything, I just found it interesting that this episode came out right before, and had some commentary on abortion, so the more you know. The episode ends with a lesson about honesty. Okay, I guess we learned that we need to be honest about our jacking off habits. Did we really need an episode about Morty's living sperm to learn that lesson though? You guys could have made this about not being ashamed of your sexuality or something. Something with a little more substance. It feels like that's what they wanted to comment on, but they chose to go with this honesty route instead. You know, buried deep somewhere inside this episode is a great commentary about accepting your animal impulses and being responsible with them. Like the president himself says, we were all 14 once, but have some restraint. Your sexuality is a lot like that. Part of growing up is knowing when it's okay to go crazy and knowing when you should just keep it in your pants. Instead, we got a half-baked lesson about honesty, which is so cliche it makes my head spin. So, okay, I've been pretty negative this whole video, but come on, it's the sperm episode. What am I supposed to do? So what's the real lesson here? Look, I'm not a TV writer, but I am a creative and I write and produce my own stuff. And as an artist, I've got issues too. You know, I'm not even gonna lie, I've got that homework folder. But the difference is, I don't try to shoehorn its content into my videos most of the time. And yet here you are, making a video about the only Rick and Morty episode about sentient sperm. Okay, fair point, but I'm only covering it to make an actual point, not to get my rocks off. If I ever make a video explicitly about sex, there's gonna be a damn good reason for it. Luckily, this was a few seasons ago, and they really backed off after this one. It's not completely gone. The shadows of it still linger in our minds. Naruto is still out there somewhere, and we still have final desmithation to not talk about, but it looks like things are getting slowly better for Rick and Morty in general. So let me know in the comments what you thought of this episode. Overhated? Underhated? Maybe you just don't care? Whatever it is, let's get a conversation going. And also, if you missed the community post I made about it recently, I have my Instagram back. I'll be posting a lot of art there in the coming weeks. So follow me over there for some art that does admittedly, like this episode, get a little spicier. But it doesn't go nearly as far as sentient sperm. Anyways, that's all for this one. Thanks for watching, and remember, keep that homework folder hidden, and definitely don't open it on stream. Good night.